Moving forward, the next speaker comes to us as the HSE&S PSM manager at Kuraray eval. His key leadership roles are chairperson of the Industry Business Roundtable, chairperson of the Texas Chemistry Council, vice chair of the TCC Occupational Safety Committee, chair LaPorte Morgan's Point and Shore Acres LEPC. He also is a member of the Texas Safety Foundation, ECMA, the WJTA Board, San Jacinto College CPT-EHS Advisory Board, and he was also recognized as the 2021 TCC Safety Professional of the Year. Please welcome Richard Bass.
No, we're going to have a good time today, right? Everyone's having a good time? All right, so many of you probably have questions, a lot of you maybe not, about what is safety culture, right? I can put up definitions, I can put things up there for you to read, but bottom line is, it's everything. It's the tools you're providing your people. We have a different workforce today, right? They don't work with the same tools that we used 20 years ago. So really what we want to do is we want to build that strong safety culture, make sure that the employees have the right tools, they have the right engagement, they have the right things to do their job properly. Because what ultimately it comes down to is operational discipline, right? And by having those tools, whether it's training or just digital transformation, or even just the things that people need to do, the help that they need on a daily basis. Well, I think it's all right. Empathy and safety culture. Can you even tell me why that's important? All right, one of the things with the group that we talked to, working with our operators, they asked me the same thing. They're like, man, what is empathy, right? Here's a quick example. You got your operations going. Something happens in the process unit. They're having a lot of trouble. The empathetic response is for the people who go out there and help. Okay? The other is the guy that sits in the control room and says, sucks to be you. I'm ordering lunch, you want me to order you anything? That's a sympathetic response. We want to focus on empathetic responses, get that engagement up, because we want to make sure that people are doing what they, helping each other out. But it's also us as management teams and stuff being able to be that empathetic, being able to understand what they're going through. And that comes down to tool selection as well. All right, role of leadership. Again, the leaders, some of the things that we focus on sometimes is the leaders just, it's that policy enforcement, right? Do as I say. That's not always the best answer. We really need to make sure we're focused on that engagement, right? Engagement and communication. We need clear lines of communication to make sure that people understand what they're supposed to be doing. Leading by example, those kind of things, is really important. And again, this is a stat from a Gallup study a few years ago, but really managers and supervisors account for 70% of the variance in the employee engagement. We've all heard that, right? People don't leave companies, they leave bad supervisors. Everybody's heard that. So why haven't we changed anything? We're still at 70%. There we go. A little bit of delay here. So how many people have conducted a safety culture, like a first impression analysis on their site? Anybody? How was it? Yes, it is. You learn a lot about your site by having that first impression analysis, right? I'll tell you a little bit of example on us. One of the things that we found out, most of your senior managers, even just in 2022 when we did this, most of our senior managers are what? They're baby boomers and Gen Xers. And then to find out that over 50% of your workforce is Gen Z or younger. I mean, a millennial or Gen Z. That was a big time issue that we ran into, because we knew it was coming. We just didn't know we were already there. A lot of the stuff that we go into that also is you realize that feedback that you get, where people in today's world, they may not understand what safety culture is and what impact every person at your site has to do with safety. So we actually had 59% of the people who participated in it said they didn't feel like they had a direct impact on safety. That's hard. That's hard to take from a management team looking at it going, but man, our numbers look good. You know, our numbers look good. Everything's looking good, but we're just not getting there. So that's something to really think about. And again, that generational workforce, kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but but you know, again, millennials and Gen Zs, they work different, right? They use different tools. That's one of the reasons why we're here today. These tools weren't available when I started in this industry. But I'll tell you what, the generation that's in our plants right now working and that will be here working for the foreseeable future, the stuff that we're learning today and seeing today, that is how they learned. They grew up with an iPhone. I mean, just think about that. I grew up where I didn't even have a phone. It was tied to a wall, right? And you had to still, you know, it was even like the push buttons were just coming out, right? You had to do the whole dial thing, and if it didn't go through, you had to start over, right? We had a 20-foot cord, and that was probably the happiest I ever was being able to go around the corner and talk to somebody, right? You know, it's different. The kids today learn different. So our safety culture needs to evolve as well. And that includes having these tools to success. I think it skipped one. Oh, no. So again, Douglas McGregor's X and Y theory. Anybody ever heard of that before? It's important to think about, right? Because that's, you know, if you grew up in that time period where it was kind of like the old adage where they said, go do it, yes sir, jump, how high, right? There was a long time in our industry where a supervisor would just tell the employees, go do it, and it's because I said so. And they just went and did it. They didn't ask questions, they just did it. Today's generation, one of the main positive things that you get from them, they ask a lot of questions. And sometimes we hate it, right? Because we would like to be able to revert back and just go, because I said so. But it doesn't work that way anymore. They need to know. They want to know. That's ingrained in their culture. They want to know why they're doing it. So having the theory X versus theory Y has a huge effect on engagement, right? If you have that theory X person whose employees are lazy, I have to tell them every single thing that they do, man, people get discouraged with that, right? How many people have ever worked for a micromanager? I'm not going to ask how many people in here are micromanagers, but we know there a few of us might be. But again, that's one of those things that we run into. The theory Y has a huge impact on motivation. So again, theory Y versus theory X. The power of safety messaging. I can tell you this right now. That was some of the stuff that we've worked the hardest on, was getting past that production first mentality. Because if you ever put production first, if you've been working on this for 5 years and the first time someone says, we got to do it, we got to get that product out, do it in any way you can, you're starting over. You're going back to the beginning because you lost all credibility. You have to put safety first. And that comes into the poor messaging, right? So your solutions really to help ensure safety leadership, communicate it, enforce it, reward it, right? If you got stop work authority, if you got a guy who's 2 weeks ago was working at McDonald's down the street, and now he's in your plant, and he stops and asks questions, and it stops the job, and there's no findings, that should still be rewarded. Because what if there would have been findings? What if there would have been something wrong? Because what we've seen throughout industry for years and years and years is people have always done it that way, right? How many people have ever heard that term, that's the way we've always done it? That is the worst. That is, you know, I mean, I had stickers made one time which said those words and it had the circle with the slash, because that's not what we want. We want those different perspectives. And by going through this process, you encourage those different perspectives. You encourage that, and it has a huge impact on engagement. It has a huge impact on your safety performance. So Here's a challenge. A lot of people don't see the role in safety. They just don't. They think of it as compliance, right? I mean, that's in reality what most people, they go through, whether they're going through the safety council or they're going through your onboarding and they're having to sit through all these CBTs and confined space. All that stuff is beat into their heads, right? That's all they know about safety. So we have to teach them. We have to give them the tools. You know, the leadership roles, we have to show the employees how they do have an impact. Active participation, hazard identification, right? PHAs. Why do you think we involve people in PHAs? I mean, that's super important, right? But how many of the people that participate in those PHAs know that that is a part of safety? So it's up to us to teach them that, to teach them what that is. Not just, oh, it's something you have to do. There's a free lunch. You know, I mean, that's really, sometimes that's what you get, these 20-year guys, and they're like, I don't know, that's your job. Safety's your job. You know, I mean, I've heard it before. There's no such thing as a safety cop anymore. Because if I have to be a safety cop, why do I need you? They don't need me either. If I'm having to be a safety cop, it means I haven't properly put in a good safety culture. I haven't worked with the team to get it to that level to where they're policing themselves, right? We've heard, Jim Griffith's here today from CPET. I've had those conversations with him. How do we get people to want to know? How do we get people to sell safety to themselves? If I'm having to come in and I'm having to sell safety to you so that way you can go home safe, what purpose is that? We need them to recognize, we got to give them the tools to recognize why they are doing that and not have to sell it to them. So, some of the key takeaways today, safety culture and leadership, when we look at it, it's the engagement. We have to get engagement, and that could be anything. That could be stuff like, hey, we're going to have a contest. Who can find the most hazards this month? It could be anything that they're doing. It could be how many shifts have the most stop work authorities that are used. Then doing the first impression surveys, finding those gaps. Are you an X theory company or are you a Y theory company? Do you know the generations that are working in your plant right now? Do you know what your statistics are? Does your management team know that? Safety messaging. Again, that comes back to making sure they never hear or never even feel, because that's the key word here is feel. If anyone ever feels like it's production over safety, you're ruining your safety culture. Really, you just need to make sure people understand that last one, that everyone has a role in safety, but it takes the leadership to buy in, and sometimes that may be hard, but everybody is a leader. Everybody has the opportunity to influence somebody else, and that includes why you're here today, which is to look at those tools, because that younger generation that's already working in our facilities, guess what? They don't learn the same way we did. They need those tools. To us, some of the stuff that they're going through is like, oh, wow, that's complicated. And to them, they're like, man, I got to the third level of whatever game, and man, this is nothing. I got to whatever, I don't even know the games anymore, I mean, it's, but it's that mentality. This comes natural to the people working in your plants already. But it doesn't come natural to us. And that's what we have to recognize. All right. Anybody have any questions? Yeah, absolutely. Did everyone hear that? So everything that we do in life has risk, right? So a lot of the stuff that all of us have in our sites, we have risk analysis, right? We have job tasks that we do, and we've done a risk analysis on all those job tasks. So that's part of it where you can go back to that and you can show people hey, doing this job, these are the elements that we're doing to keep you safe. If they still have questions, we can show them. But at the same time, it does, people have questions, and we want to encourage that. And we feel that every job can be done safely, right? But we have to get that group together and come to an agreement. And I think that's some case where you need to involve them in the planning when they have those questions. You need to get them involved. Well, what would make you feel comfortable doing this job? Is there anything else that we could provide you? Any, again, I don't want to rely on PPE. No one does. But sometimes, you can't always engineer something out, right? We'd like to. We'd like to engineer a lot of stuff out. But at the same time, we still have to make a product, but we can do it safely. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Test. Here you go, Dylan.
So if we're really committed to this safety over pounds, we have the stop work authority, but have we ever considered a start work authority? Do we have all the resources we need to get this job done? Until we have that in place, that fear is going to be on them, is I have to get this job done. And do they understand why they have to have these things? Do these things make them feel safe enough to do this task?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we say stop work authority, that's a general term, right? And a lot of people, they stop there, no pun intended, but they stop there. There should be an investigation that goes on with this, because we categorize stop work authority in 3 ways. No findings, where we go and we look at it, we address it, we talk it over with the person, address their concerns, show them how it's being done safe and how they can continue. That's a no findings. A good catch. Hey, yeah, we haven't started working yet. You guys are walking out and verifying the job, and oh wow, look, one of the isolation points was missed. It's a good catch. Let's continue looking and dive deeper and make sure that all the isolation points are correct. And then you might have one that what we call, it's a near miss. They stop, but when you look at it, maybe it was that same thing where the isolation point was missed, but they're already working. Right? So that's what it actually categorized. That's a stop work, and we investigate and we find that that isolation point was missed, and we need to correct it, and we make it safe for them to continue work. But the term stop work, a lot of times in people's minds, stops at when you stop the job, and they don't think about how you get back to working. Did that answer your question? Or?
I just think that they need to be able to know they have the time to get all the resources before they undertake these risks. Clearly, the resources are theirs controls to protect them from the risk.
Right. So this goes back to the production first, right? Every stop work should be treated the same, even if it's a no findings. And actually, one of the things that you do is you promote it. You reward it. That's one of the things that we've done where we actually take pictures of the individual, give them prizes, right? And they get awarded these prizes in front of their coworkers to show that we're committed. But if you ever do the same thing where you put production first and you say, man, just get to work. There's nothing wrong here. That's what you've lost your culture. You have to practice what you preach. And I'm not exactly sure if that's everything that you're talking about, but it comes down to practicing what you preach and having, your management team having your back and having the people's back and rewarding people even when they don't find anything wrong, to where we would rather what we call it is a feeling. You shouldn't have to prove that it's unsafe. Typically, people have gut feelings, right? Man, something just doesn't feel right. And we want them to act on that. We would rather them take 15 minutes to find out and make sure that the job is safe to do than to say, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. And guess what? There was something wrong. Nothing happened that time. But because nothing happened that time, the next time they set up the job the same way. But because you didn't stop, the next guy doesn't know, they get hurt.